Rogan and Konstantin Kisin weighed in on the wrongful deportation of a Venezuelan migrant who was sent to a maximum security prison in El Salvador, with ICE claiming that he was a member of Tren de Aragua. However, it appears that is not the case. In fact, he wasn't even in the United States illegally. He was here legally. He had a legitimate asylum claim. He came in through a port of entry and made that asylum claim. And his name's Andre Hernandez. He's a gay makeup artist.
Let's talk about a disturbing immigration case that's rapidly gaining attention online. Surprisingly, Joe Rogan and Ana Kasparian from the Young Turks, two individuals who rarely agree on anything, are actually on the same side here. So, what could possibly unite them? A shocking incident stemming from immigration policies under the Trump administration. Here's what happened. Andre Hernandez, a Venezuelan makeup artist who is openly gay, legally arrived in the United States, seeking asylum. But instead of being granted a fair hearing, he was abruptly deported. And not just anywhere. He was sent to a maximum security prison in El Salvador. Why? ICE agents claimed that tattoos of his parents wearing crowns resembled gang symbols. That alone was enough for them. No trial, no hearing, and no opportunity to explain. He was taken and thrown into one of the most dangerous prisons in Central America, despite having done nothing wrong. This isn't just politics. It's about how a government agency can ruin a life with no accountability. Joe Rogan, Ana Kasparian, and Konstantin Kisin all agree. What happened to Andre Hernandez is outrageous. In today's video, we'll break down the case, why this rare alliance matters, and how it could impact Trump's 2024 campaign. This story exposes a dark side of the immigration system, and it might just change some minds.
You gotta get scared that people who are not criminals are getting lassoed up and deported and sent to El Salvador prisons.
With a bunch of these Tren de Aragua guys, allegedly they got at least one guy who wasn't a criminal, who was just a gay barber who I think, according to the story, came here legally. He was here legally. That's what they said.
Joe Rogan and Konstantin Kisin weighed in on the wrongful deportation of a Venezuelan migrant who was sent to a maximum security prison in El Salvador, with ICE claiming that he was a member of Tren de Aragua. However, it appears that is not the case. In fact, he wasn't even in the United States illegally. He was here legally. He had a legitimate asylum claim. He came in through a port of entry and made that asylum claim. And his name's Andre Hernandez. He's a gay makeup artist who's been an outspoken critic of Venezuela. And I just feel like it's pretty obvious he's not a Tren de Aragua gang member.
Yeah, they don't even allow gay people into the gang. So among 1,000 reasons why he's not a gang member. So this is what happens when you don't do due process.
Exactly.
Because the courts are supposed to check. Is he a gang member or isn't he? Is he undocumented or isn't he? Did he come here legally or not? Because if you don't check, you get people who did come here legally and that aren't in a gang. And that's why, if he did this without doing it in a dumb way, and he just rounded up the actual gang and made sure, then shipped him off, some people would still be mad that he's sending him to a hellhole in El Salvador. But overall, the American people would be massively on his side.
Yeah, and look, I want to be 100% clear. Everyone, including individuals who are suspected of being gang members, and there's actual evidence, showing that they're part, doesn't matter. You need to go through the proper channels. There needs to be due process. There's a reason why due process exists. And if you think it's okay to just throw it away when it comes to individuals who the federal government is simply accusing unilaterally of doing something criminal, well, you're really allowing so much power to be concentrated in the federal government to the point where they can accuse anyone of anything. And you don't get your day in court. That's crazy. That is absolutely insane.
Joe Rogan sat down with British commentator Konstantin Kisin and Ana Kasparian for a powerful and unsettling conversation about civil liberties and government overreach. Their focus was on Andre Hernandez, a Venezuelan asylum seeker who did everything by the book. He entered the US legally through a designated port of entry and filed a proper asylum request, seeking refuge from political persecution. But instead of receiving the due process guaranteed under both US and international law, he was swiftly deported. And not just deported. He was sent to a maximum security prison in El Salvador, notorious for housing violent criminals and gang members. Why? Because immigration agents believed tattoos of his parents with crowns resembled gang-related imagery. That was the only evidence cited. Hernandez is an openly gay makeup artist who has publicly opposed the Venezuelan government. There's no proof linking him to any gang, especially not MS-13, which ICE falsely suggested. Still, they treated him like a criminal. It's the kind of story that sounds fictional, but it's real. And what's even more remarkable is who's speaking out. Joe Rogan, typically seen as leaning toward the populist right, and Konstantin. Kisin, known for criticizing progressive ideas, both strongly condemned the deportation. They called it terrifying, reckless, and completely un-American. Kisin emphasized that when the government makes mistakes like this, it spends more time covering them up than correcting them. Rogan added that the real danger isn't just about deporting criminals. It's about what happens when innocent people get swept up in the system, with no chance to defend themselves. Even Ana Kasparian, a longtime progressive voice, sided with them. When voices from opposing ideologies raise the same red flag, it's a powerful signal that something has gone deeply wrong.
He had sought asylum in the United States through a port of entry, but the Trump administration argues that he's part of Tren de Aragua because he has gang tattoos. Oh, interesting. So, they make the claim. I want to see the gang tattoos. Maybe they have a legitimate argument here. Here's what the tattoos look. Here are the tattoos that ICE declared were evidence that this guy, gay makeup artist who came to a port of entry seeking asylum from Venezuela, was a member of a vicious gang. I'm not making this up. This is it. Mom and dad with crowns over them. Those are not gang tattoos. But apparently it didn't matter because despite the fact that it's obvious those aren't gang tattoos, his lawyers have not been able to reach him since March 15th. And after interviewing him, he says he is not a member of the gang. Somehow an ICE officer concludes that despite all that, his 2 crown tattoos and mom and dad written under them are consistent with those of a Tren de Aragua member.
No, they're not.
No, they're not. They're just lying. So with that context in mind, and knowing that this is what Rogan and Kisin are talking about, let's hear more of what they had to say.
I think a human being plucked out of nowhere and ending up in a country he's never been in a maximum security prison with gang members, seems like a bad thing to happen to me.
It's horrific. It's horrific.
I don't think that should be controversial.
No, that's not controversial at all. And this is the thing, measured twice, cut once. This is kind of crazy that could be possible. That's horrific. And that's bad for the cause. Like, the cause is, let's get the gang members out. Everybody agrees. But let's not innocent gay hairdressers get lumped up with the gangs. And then, how long before that guy can get out? Can we figure out how to get him out? Is there any plan in place to alert the authorities that they've made a horrible mistake and correct it?
Well, if you think about it from a government perspective, and this is where I think it gets quite sinister, is once you've done that, the incentive structure is never going to be to admit that and deal with it. The incentive structure is to say nothing, to cover it up, to pretend it didn't happen.
But
right?
That is horrible.
So someone ends up in a black hole. But we've seen it. We've seen it in every country, including in America.
But that's the thing about politics, right? Never admit your fault. Never admit you're wrong.
It's so dumb.
And this is the thing we're seeing with the signal thing, and this is the thing we're seeing with this.
And there seems to be more frustration with the lack of accountability or the willingness to take responsibility for mistakes made. So far, we haven't heard anything from the Trump administration in regard to this specific individual who was sent away. But you should know that we have so far spent about $40 million to send migrants to El Salvador's CICOT. And that's according to the State Department. They apparently did an analysis and provided that analysis to senators. There was a delegation of 5 senators who even visited, I'm sorry, that's for Gitmo. So we've spent $40 million to jail 400 migrants at Guantanamo Bay. So it's not just El Salvador, we're also sending them to Guantanamo Bay, but that has become so expensive that the Trump administration quietly stopped doing that. And they actually sent about half of those 400 migrants back to the United States because of how costly it was. But I should also note that we've been paying El Salvador as well. The last time it was reported, we spent about $6 million to send migrants.
Ana Kasparian backed her stance with legal evidence, citing a ruling by U.S. District Judge Brian Murphy that blocked the Trump administration's policy of deporting migrants to third countries without due process. The judge made it clear, no one, guilty or innocent, can be deported without notice and a chance to seek protection under the Convention Against Torture. Despite this, the administration tried to bypass legal safeguards. And it gets worse when you follow the money. Over $6 million was spent deporting migrants to El Salvador, and $40 million tied to Guantanamo Bay, with some deportees later returned due to costly mistakes. The US essentially paid foreign governments to detain people who may have been wrongly removed. This isn't just a legal or moral failure, it's a financial catastrophe. Andre Hernandez committed no crime and followed the law, yet ended up in a foreign prison. That Joe Rogan, Konstantin Kisin, and Ana Kasparian all agree on this case shows how deeply troubling it is. No matter your politics, this should be a wake-up call about the dangers of unchecked government power. So what do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you don't want to miss out on the hottest celebrity news, make sure to subscribe to Daily Finder.